Hey, this is Sydney, and I am here to talk us through it for Wednesday, June 4th to Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. I know that I've kind of moved around the dates that I'm doing this now, and it's just to kind of accommodate my school and my work schedule because I am not yet a full-time astrologer, but I do very much interact with astrology full-time. We have a big week ahead of us, and I'm pretty excited about it because we have some planets in domicile, about to enter domicile, and some really cool conjunctions, sextiles, and trines that are happening. So please forgive me for also being off camera for another week. It'll happen time to time when my schedule gets pretty crazy, and it's kind of hard to, set up a whole space and do the recordings and everything. And so this is the way that I can stay consistent, which is important for me, a very grounded Taurus, in just staying consistent with my schedule, even if it means that I can't be on screen. So yeah, hopefully I will be back on screen next week. It won't be forever. It's just when I'm trying to recover and get life back in order. I am in school, getting my diploma through Kepler, astrology college, and I'm also working on various projects and producing and performing, all of the things. So that being said, let's dig into the astrology for the week, shall we? All right, so Wednesday, June 4th. Wednesday is Mercury's day, and we have Mercury happy as a clam in Gemini, though he is combust. He did have his Cazimi, so I'm hoping that you had some pretty brilliant ideas. And I think that those ideas are going to start increasing now, especially since we will have Mercury coming to meet Jupiter later on in the week. But for now, let's just talk about what's going on today. So I'm going to skip forward just a little bit. In the middle of the night, you're asleep. It doesn't matter. I mean, I suppose it does, but 3:14 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So this is about the time that, New York City and the East Coast are really waking up. We have the moon in Virgo trine Uranus in Taurus. And so this can be a time of feeling emotionally inspired, awake, like a little bit of a live wire, intuitive. And honestly, I think that moon in Virgo just really wants to get shit done. She wants to get to work, especially because she's going to be, going into a new sign. So she's like, let me wrap up my to-do list. And so I think there's just a little bit of energy here. So 4:11 a.m. we get the moon square Jupiter in Gemini. Again, this is, doing a lot, trying to do the most with all of the ideas that she has before things end. And with the moon square Jupiter in Gemini, we do have the void, of course, beginning at this time. So from 4:11 a.m. until about, let's call it 6:40 a.m. when the moon enters Libra, we're going to want to just kind of go with the flow, do whatever's in front of you, not start anything new, right? Void, of course, rules. In between there, we do have the Venus semi-sextile Uranus, which is an interesting little, bringing a little bit of breath of life, I think, into relationships, something about value, something about things that we love. It's, it may be something that we want to almost let go of, like a sudden realization of about something that is kind of ending in how you do relationships, especially because Venus is at the very end of Aries. So she's like, you know what? I've been doing this all on my own, and here's what I want to let go of, and here's what I want to change, right? And Uranus is like, yeah, let's shake it up. Let's do it. So moving forward, we have 8:04 a.m. We have the moon in Libra opposes Saturn in Aries. Now, this is some sort of emotional reality check, right? This is, no, we cannot go further in this way. And this is right after the moon has entered Libra. And so moon in Libra is really a moon that is all about collaboration and communication. It wants to share. It wants to be in partnership. It needs to relate to other people in order for it to feel like it's, secure and feels good about itself, right? And when Saturn in Aries from across the aisle is like, Absolutely not. I think, this is feeling a little bit of rejection and feeling a bit isolated, and also could just feel pretty down in the dumps, right? It's something about you needed to connect and Saturn said no. Right after that, 10:30 a.m., we have the moon is going to oppose Neptune in Aries, and this can feel like just emotional overwhelm, right? So maybe we were told no. Do not go any further with whatever plans to connect, right? And then we get really confused and overwhelmed with emotion around what we're trying to do and get done, right? This could also just feel like being disillusioned by what we were trying to do. And so I think that there's just kind of a caution here to not take things super personally, because it will pass. Short transits, right? At 1:51 p.m., we have that moon trine retrograde Pluto at about 3 degrees and 36 seconds. So when we get the moon touching Pluto, she wants to go deep. She wants to get intense. She wants to feel a little bit obsessed. And we have these planets in social signs. So there's some sort of really wanting to connect with others in a deep, more passionate sort of way, getting involved with community. This is also just feeling more intensely, right? More on a deeper level, right? These are air signs, and air doesn't go deep, right? It's up in the air. But with this trine to Pluto, there's an ability to probably get a little bit more into the meat of the matter or the heart of the matter, which can be pretty great. So if you feel compelled to maybe have a little bit more of a connection that hits on a deeper level, that's what it is. 7:31 p.m., we have that Venus in Aries sextile Jupiter in Gemini. And I love this aspect. I think there's something here when we have Venus and Jupiter hanging out, making friends. These are two benefics in the sky, and they are yeah, we want to party. We're feeling flirty. Venus and Aries, right? Aries is definitely flirty, pioneering, wants to take charge. I'm number one, all of that good stuff. And then we have Gemini, right? Which is definitely social, definitely chatty, wants all of the chisme, wants all the gossip. And these are two of our beautiful planets that mean good things. They're social, they're idea forward, and it's all about kind of love and generosity. So I hope that this aspect kind of lets the feelings, the nice feelings and vibes really flow. There could be a little bit of a caution to not get a little bit too ahead of yourself in terms of indulging in various things. I would say more on the lines of smoke or drink, things like that, right? Don't party too much. It is definitely a little bit of a party aspect. I would love to throw a party with Venus and Jupiter in sextile to each other, especially in these social outward facing signs. At 11:26 p.m., we get the moon semi-square Mars, and so this can be a little bit disruptive to the sleep. And so if you have an early morning the next day, I would recommend trying to get to sleep before this little irritating aspect hits, because it could just kind of be unsettled, can't really quite get comfy in the sheets kind of thing. But, really minor, and yeah, we'll all be sleeping after feeling that nice vibe of Venus and Jupiter having a little handshake in the sky. So let's dig into Thursday, June 5th. Thursday is Jupiter's day, and he's just now getting out of that squaring the nodes orb, which is fantastic because I think that we've all been feeling super overwhelmed with how many choices and how much information, whether it's true or not, just kind of flying in our faces. And Jupiter is literally ending its cycle in the next few days of being in Gemini. And so he has entered his very anaretic position in the sky at 29 degrees. He's going to be hanging out here today, and I think the next day as well. And so I think there's going to be a lot of news and information about the legal system, about things having to do with immigration, things to have to do with legalities, law, lawyers, higher education, educational institutions, all sorts of stuff. But he's not really doing a lot of aspecting. He's within that minute or degree of squaring Saturn, and so I think we're getting closer to a bit of an economic crunch. And I'm sure that you're all feeling it. I think everybody's feeling it. But 10:03 a.m., we have Mercury squaring the nodes. And it's going to give us a north node resolution point. So when Mercury squares the nodes, I think that there's a piece of information or communication or a conversation that needs to be had that is going to kind of set us in one place or another, right? It helps us release old stuff, old story, old things we've told ourselves, and then also allows us to embrace this North Node in Pisces thing, right? Which is like compassion, a all-encompassing sense of love and forgiveness. It's definitely embracing the ocean and mystery. There's definitely stuff around like, I want to say magic, but that's not quite right. But definitely like going towards a space where all things are equal and beautiful and loving. It's like the end all be all, right? Where we can appreciate all of the different perspectives, perhaps, or stories that we have. It's also grand illusion, but whatever. Anyways, so I think that Mercury coming to this square point is saying I need to have some sort of real conversation here about the information that I'm sharing, the stories that I'm telling. That sort of thing. So I think it can be a big day, especially for those of us that have anything hanging out at around 23 degrees of the mutable signs. So that is going to be Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. I think that there is a really important piece of information or a conversation that needs to be had in our lives in order for us to push forward into hopefully some sort of release or forgiveness for ourselves. Now, we also have at 1:46 p.m., we have the moon in Libra trine the sun in Gemini. Now, the moon is in the path of fire, which can be a little sus, right? She's in dangerous territory. She is maybe trying to make friends that she shouldn't be making. But that trine, that air trine between the moon and the sun is definitely a feel-good aspect. And this is going to be happening around the 15 degrees. And so if you have that, something is flowing, something is going. It is a nice flowing energy. Our collective needs and our soul's kind of desires or what we're here to do are really, really flowing. This is a communicative trine, right? So again, this kind of brings up more stuff around communication, information, connecting with others, social, being social and socializing, that sort of thing. So then we get to 3:09 p.m. We have the Mercury in Gemini sextile Mars in Leo. Now, I think this really gives us the energy to have the conversation that we need to have. And really this aspect has been, forming all day. It's not like it hasn't been there. And so it's like while Mercury is square the nodes, we also have Mercury sextile Mars. Have the conversation. There's an energy here to tell your story. And so do it. I think it's pushing us to do it, and hopefully being able to communicate ourselves or stick up for ourselves and communicate for ourselves in ways that feel friendly, if not super energetic. Because Mars in Leo is got some energy. It's got some drama to him. And then the biggie for the day, 9:42 p.m., we have Venus entering her domicile of Taurus, which is fantastic. We've had this long sojourn of Venus in Aries. She was going through a retrograde shadow, and then she entered her debilitation being in Aries, where she doesn't like to be. And now she is in Taurus. She is cozy. She has her fuzzy socks on. She is very happy to eat some chocolate, maybe lay in a field, look at the stars, feel nice. We love Venus and Taurus, and so if you have any planets, especially in Taurus, or also in sextile or trine, right? So we're going to get to Cancer, Virgo, also Capricorn and Pisces. Venus transiting through Taurus is going to come in sextile or trine your planets, which is a really nice, lovely, benefic, good thing. She's going to make things feel a little bit easier and feel a little bit better in those moments. Especially if you got Taurus placements, hooray, Venus is going to come across and kiss all of those things, which is going to hopefully make things feel a little bit more pleasant and kind of smooth out the rough edges. All right, so now we get into Friday, June 6th. Friday is Venus's day. Venus has just started her journey at home in Taurus, feeling real nice. She is only answering to herself right now. Fantastic. And I think that for this day, we have a lot of aspects. So I think we're going to feel like we're really kind of going along, trying to get a lot of things done. 7:19 a.m. we get the moon sextile Mars in Leo. This is a really great aspect for, again, doing what you need to do. She is in Libra. She's trying to get some stuff done before she goes into a place where she does not feel so great. She's still in the path of fire, so, it can be a little bit treacherous what she's trying to do. But moon sextile Mars is feeling energetic, definitely feeling social, and she's really trying to go and connect and do what she wants to do. 9:55 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we get the moon trine Mercury in Gemini, and now she is communicating. She's singing like a songbird, right? And I think the ideas are big. I think the conversations are feeling really important and pivotal at this time. Especially because, Mercury is still very much in this square position to the nodes. And so I would say be interested and curious, very Gemini word, curious about the conversations that you are wanting to have and needing to have. It's a lovely aspect. 11:08 a.m. we have the moon opposite Chiron in Aries. Now this can feel like some sort of emotional sensitivity or hurt has kind of happened. So if we go back in time and we think, what kind of conversations are you having here, right? What are you trying to get done? And then now we're feeling a bit sensitive, and maybe our egos are a little bit bruised, or we're feeling like we're not getting to connect in the ways that we want to in relationship because we have the moon in Libra with Chiron and Aries. These are the relationship signs. This is me versus us, right? Or me versus you. So there could be something where like ego gets bumped and doesn't feel super great. So just be a little bit cautious. 4:13 p.m. we do have the moon in Libra, quincunx Uranus and Taurus. This could be some sort of sudden break, sudden thing about relationships, especially because that moon in Libra and Uranus and Taurus are engirdled. They're both ruled by that Venus and Taurus that just got into Taurus. And she's like, I'm cozy here. I'm feeling good, right? And so there could be something about how relationships were operating that needs to take some sort of sudden adjustment in order for Venus to feel comfortable back at home. She's making a change, babe. 4:55 p.m. we have the Mercury sextile Chiron in Aries. Now we are having some sort of conversation about the healing that we need to do, or perhaps even like the the harm that was caused to our ego, and we're able to have the conversation. Does it feel comfortable? Maybe not so much, but we have some ideas perhaps about how we can go about kind of finding some sort of resolution here. 6:04 p.m. Moon in Libra trine Jupiter in Gemini. This is a feel-good aspect. I really like this closing aspect for the void of course, because it will begin off of this. So, Moon Jupiter is always some sort of like emotional overflow. Like the cup overfloweth in social ways, and needing and being able to connect and feeling good connecting with other people and with their ideas. This isn't a particularly, I would say, emotional or super sensitive trine. This is more of an intellectualizing of our emotions sort of trine. Yeah. 7:22 p.m. The moon is going to enter Scorpio. Now, moon in Scorpio feels really, really intensely, right? This is a difficult moon to have in a natal chart, and also is in the path of fires, dangerous waters. Moon in Scorpio needs to feel like super or guarded in order to feel secure. Security is of the utmost priority to all of the fixed moons, but especially to Scorpio. If a moon in Scorpio doesn't feel safe, they can emotionally lash out or can kind of withhold a lot of those emotions, just bury it deep, 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 deep. Still waters run deep, babe. 9:08 p.m. We have the moon in Scorpio, quincunx Saturn in Aries. This is some sort of maybe suddenly feeling blocked or needing to make some sort of adjustment around our limits, our boundaries, something around the structures that we're trying to create. Really has to do with that Mars and Leo, though, so how we're trying to like boldly go forward with our creative passions. But moon quincunx Saturn just never feels good. It feels like anxiety, and there could just be some anxiety around what we're trying to do, what our passions are. 9:22 p.m. We have the moon opposite Venus in Taurus. This is almost like feeling out of sorts with women or the feminine principle, or something about how we're relating to women maybe doesn't feeling super great. Moon in Scorpio opposite Venus in Taurus, this is a survival thing. This is a survival axis. This also can have to do with money, resources. So maybe we're feeling kind of under-resourced in our relationships with women at this time. So just kind of let that pass. And it could also be that we are trying to maybe overcompensate in order for us to feel safe and comfortable in some sort of way. 10:56 p.m. we have the moon sesqui-square the sun. This is a frustrating aspect. We are not feeling super like in sync with ourselves, with our, soul or creative purpose, and also with how we are feeling emotionally. And then at 11:22 p.m., the last aspect of the day is moon quincunx Neptune. I think it's like sudden confusion or a anxiety that you can't quite shake off, but it's like free floating anxiety, right? Because Neptune is like the ocean, and so it's just like you're kind of being touched by it all around you, and you're like, I can't quite put my finger on it. So with all that to say, try to go to bed early, though I feel like this might be a little bit of a restless night. Speaking of restless nights, let's go into Saturday, June 7th. Saturday is Saturn's day. We still have Saturn on the world point, so I think that there's still lots of news that is kind of coming out around Saturnian things, structures, government, those sort of things. And so we are learning what Saturn in Aries is about at this time. And the moon is in Scorpio, and she doesn't like it there, right? 2:37 a.m., moon square retrograde Pluto. Moon and Pluto squares are so intense, so almost it's like anxiety an awareness of some sort of crisis that we are trying to fix or form. It makes us want to make some sort of change or need to make some sort of change. But because the moon is square Pluto in a fixed sign, these are both in fixed sign, they really don't want to. This is a crisis of awareness. This is a crisis of actually consciousness, not awareness, where we're like, I don't know how to get this done, perhaps, and feeling really critical about it, feeling really obsessed about it. Moon in Scorpio knows how to obsess. They just do. Emotionally obsess about everything. And when it comes up to square Pluto, its ruler, in modern terms, Pluto's like, yo, you gotta let something go here, right? And the moon's like, I don't want to. But this is almost like being kind of forced to in order to make some sort of psychological change. Now, I think that this is going to be a little bit possible for us to do some sort of release here. 8:52 a.m. we have the moon quintile Mars and Leo, and I think, this is a creative space, but it's also a space that I think has to do with a lot of pride. Moon in Scorpio and Mars in Leo, in a quintile aspect, they're able to kind of be the fighters that you would want to be. So it's like almost like fighting for yourself, fighting to release something in order for you to feel truly creative or free. Moon Mars in general as a quintile is like being able to kind of take some sort of action and to be the competitor that you truly, truly want to be. 9:23 a.m. we have the moon by quintile Saturn in Aries. I think this is, feeling some sort of resolve or, I don't know, like a mastery of some sort. Like I can do this thing, right? I can get this done. Wow. Sorry, it's very loud here sometimes. And then at 11:22 a.m. we have Mercury by quintile retrograde Pluto, and I think this is like the ideas are really flowing. I think that this is being able to get to the bottom of a matter, and it just kind of fits. It just kind of sinks in, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh, right? I think that there is some sort of deep brain intuition that happens here, the heart of the intellectual matter. Then we're just in a biquintile alley with the moon by quintile Neptune, and then it's going to biquintile the sun in Gemini. It's 11:34 a.m. and then 6:48 p.m. So I think we just kind of, this feels like a good time to use all of your brain power and all of your almost emotional EQ, right? And then we're going to get 9:08 p.m. Mars by quintile Saturn in Aries, when we have Mars and Saturn coming together in let's call it quote unquote a good aspect between the two very challenging, hard planets. I think this is we can get stuff done. We can be in some sort of mastery, creative mastery. At 9:23, we have Venus semi-sextile Neptune. This can be kind of dreamy. A new vision is emerging around how we show up in relationships. It's not fully formed yet, so, but let the ideas flow, because at 10:32 p.m. we get Mercury semi-sextile Uranus. New, sudden little twinges and roots of ideas are starting to sprout. 10:51 p.m. Moon in Scorpio sesqui square Mercury in Gemini. I think this is really being able to kind of get into the heart of the matter and to feel all the ways that you need to feel and know exactly how you want to communicate it. Feels like a super sleuth sort of energy as we fade into the night. Sunday, June 8th. Sunday is the sun's day. We still have sun in Gemini. He is all about ideas and communication, being kind of social. It's the sign of the twins, of siblings. and also of doing things twice. And we also have Mercury and Jupiter here in this sign for just a little bit longer, right? Because this is Mercury's last day in Gemini. So he is anoretic. He's like, I got all of these ideas to blurt out. Oh my goodness. And so early in the morning, really throughout the morning until we get that Mercury conjunct Jupiter aspect, I think that there's almost like a churning, a frustration. We have things that we're trying to communicate. We're maybe feeling a little bit blocked, not really trying. We have too many options perhaps. And maybe we're feeling a bit confused about like the way that we want to go forward. At 7:59 a.m., we get the moon quincunx the sun, and this is feeling kind of out of sorts, right? This is a sort of like anxiety around like our needs and our drives and our desires in some sort of way. At 1:11 p.m., this is one of the big aspects of the day. We have Mercury in Gemini conjunct Jupiter. And this is at the very last degree of Gemini, right? Jupiter takes 12 years to go through a sign and to go through the zodiac. So this is the last time they're going to meet up in this sign for 12 years. And Mercury's like, I got these big ideas, man. And Jupiter's like, man, we got to let them go. We got to release them into the world. So I'm very interested to see kind of what kind of brilliance or what kind of message or idea comes up at this very last degree. It could be critical pieces of information, perhaps. This could be information about our judicial system or immigration, law, education, all sorts of stuff. At 3:58 p.m., we will have Mercury then entering Cancer. So when we think about Mercury conjunct Jupiter, Jupiter has been in his detriment. He's about to go into Cancer too, which is great. That'll be the sign of his exaltation. But Mercury entering Cancer, he becomes a little bit more sensitive. He becomes a little bit more emotional in how he is communicating. So it's like, maybe we get really passionate about the ideas that we have, and then we are like really kind of feeling ourselves into it. 7:46 p.m. Sun sesqui-square Pluto. This, I think, also feels like a frustration around being able to like get all of the information out that we wanted to be something about communication, something about our leadership, Sun and Pluto, some sort of frustrating energy here. And then we get the moon by quintile Mercury at 8:43 p.m. This is a talent for communication. This is empathetic communication and connection, right? And then at 10:57 p.m., we have the moon in Scorpio square Mars in Leo. Man, not great for sleep, I gotta tell you. Feeling real riled up, real passionate. And also, this could be some sort of emotional reaction that's making you want to fight, Moon-Mars squares. So be a bit cautious about that aspect. It's just very proud, very protective, and certainly is ready to bite. So now we are in Monday, June 9th. Monday is the moon's day. And thank God we are getting the moon entering Sagittarius. That's going to happen at 7:56 a.m. But before that, I think the kind of biggies of the morning is that we're going to get Mercury in Cancer square Saturn in Aries at the very first degrees. And that's at 3:38 a.m. But, this energy is going to hold all day. And I think it's something like we have to make some sort of change in our thinking or the ideas that we have. We're being, encouraged, nay, almost forced to make some sort of change. And I think it has to do with homeland, right? All of the things, the ideas that we've had around protecting our home, homeland security, certainly having to do with something maybe needing to stop, cease, change. finding itself in some sort of control. I think that there's something about what we're thinking that needs some serious thought and contemplation. When we have Mercury meeting Saturn, it's like we need to slow down. However, Saturn isn't in a sign of slowing down. He's like, I want to speed up. So I think that it could feel kind of frustrating. There is some sort of, reality check that is making us need to change how we are going about what we're thinking. 5:06 a.m. we have the moon opposite Uranus and Taurus. So, this is some sort of emotional shock, quick, sudden, like, oh, kind of thing. This can also feel like a little bit of a emotional trauma that comes up. And also feeling emotionally surprised. I think it has to do with surprise, especially because and also maybe something having to do with our food systems, and also maybe something just to do with resources. Some sort of shocking, surprising thing, briefly, about resources. 7:48 a.m. Moon quincunx Jupiter and Gemini. Be careful not to overdo it. It is at the very last degree, so it's really wanting to go forward with whatever ideas that are coming up and kind of need to be released in the world. And this can be about some sort of sudden change or release or adjustment that needs to be had with how the moon has been doing things. But again, moon enters Sag. I think the mood lightens. I think it gets a little bit easier. The moon in Sag wants to adventure. It's philosophical. He wants to play. He wants to be free. He wants to be free. So maybe, we've changed our mind about some things. We made some adjustments to our habits. And then we're like, okay, we're free now. At 10:20 a.m., we get the Venus and Taurus square retrograde Pluto in Aquarius. This is going to happen at 3 degrees. This is a challenging square that has to do with value, love, money, relationships, comfort and safety. It's almost as if our essential needs, something about what we need, right, around Taurus things, money, security, food, is being challenged by Pluto and Aquarius. Everybody. We're going to have to give up something. We're going to have to eliminate something in order for this to work in a better way. This is also just kind of obsessive love, right? Feeling deeply interested in Venusian things for a moment. Kind of a crisis point as well. I believe it is an opening square. Yeah, so it's a crisis of awareness. Something also could be happening around, we have some sort of awareness about our financial systems, because Venus does have to do with money. At 11:55 a.m., we get a moon trine Neptune. I love it. It's very floaty. It's very intuitive. It's very dreamy. It can be, feeling pretty inspired, which is just really lovely. I think we all need a bit of inspiration, and a feel-good aspect can do it. Big winner of the day, 2:02 p.m., Jupiter enters Cancer. Jupiter enters the sign of his exaltation, where he can kind of flow and spread his wings inside of the intuitive waters, right? We love Jupiter in Cancer. And so if you have Cancer placements, this is going to be great, because Jupiter's going to come and kind of kiss those things in kind of the best ways that he can, because he loves being in the moon sign. An interesting thing about Jupiter in Cancer, though, is that how Jupiter in Cancer moves for the next year will be up to the feelings of the moon, which is every 2.5 days. So I think that everything that we have to do with Jupiterian things is up for a lot of change, and watching a lot of kind of the waves of shift throughout the next year. So it's legal things, publishing, law, higher education, travel, can be a thing too. I think we're going to see all of these things change, and hopefully for the better. Who knows though, right? 3:54 p.m. Mercury in Cancer is going to square Neptune in Aries. This can feel like being mentally confused, overwhelmed, taken advantage of, or had the wool pulled over our eyes in some sort of way. And so, communication can get a little bit dicey here. Maybe someone is really telling a story that is a little bit more emotional than it needs to be, or it's not entirely the truth. This could be issues with truth. And then at 8:41 p.m., we have Mars in Leo by quintile Neptune. This is kind of like spiritual warrior type stuff. I think it is a nice aspect for the most part, but it can feel like, inspired to go after like your dreams and your desires. So we find ourselves now in Tuesday, June 10th. Tuesday is Mars's day. Mars is still in prideful, creative, playful Leo. He's happy. He's in a fire sign, right? But he's ending his time here. So he's trying to wrap up some things, some martial things around passions and desires, especially around creativity and pride, wrapping those things up. 12:36 a.m. we get the Mars in Leo, trine Chiron in Aries. This is actively engaging with and working on, right? Something having to do with our healing. This can be like a playful engagement with our healing. This could be some sort of dream where we get to like live out our deepest fantasies that allow us to do some inner child healing even. And then we get to some weird stuff. 5:58 a.m. Moon in Sag, sesqui square Chiron. This, I think, feels like ego hurt. This feels like almost like a self-righteous kind of lashing out because we feel frustrated about the wounds that we carry. Moon in Sag just wants to be free. And I think Chiron in Aries has the wounds of going out and doing its own thing and being an individual, right? There can be some sort of hurt carried here. So there's a frustration in, the themes of freedom versus individuality. 10:12 a.m. Mercury in Cancer quincunx Pluto, retrograde Pluto in Aquarius. I just think that this feels like mental anxiety and worry. Worry that the thing that you say is going to offend everybody kind of thing, or that like you're not picking your words carefully enough, or like you are thinking really intensely about something, but it causes some sort of break or rift. It's feeling mentally out of sorts. 8:32 p.m. Moon in Sag, semi-square Pluto in Aquarius. Again, I think this is feeling uncomfortable. This is, Sag doesn't want to go deep. He wants to go broad and wide and far. But when it touches Pluto, it says, we got to go deeper than this. And so there's a discomfort, but it's slight. 11:40 p.m. We got the Moon in Sag, sesqui square Venus in Taurus. Moon in Sag wants to be free, man. Venus in Taurus wants to be comfortable. You cannot be free and comfortable at the same time necessarily, especially in the world that we're living in right now, right? I would love to feel free and secure simultaneously, but we have set up a world where that isn't necessarily the thing. So we could be feeling pretty frustrated in how we get to love and how we get to be and the things that we value. And so I think this day, Tuesday in particular, feels not the greatest. And also because we have the full moon coming tomorrow, we are going through the feelings in order for us to have some sort of release. Hey, thank you for listening to today's Astro Weather with me. I'm Sydney. As a reminder, I'm always open to seeing both new and my beloved returning clients. My website is ddastrology.com. That is D as in dog, D as in dog, astrology.com to check me out, and just click the email buttons in order to schedule with me. If you're into a more conversational feel with your podcast and content, I have a podcast called BS Astrology with my fellow Mercurial Mommy Bender, and we put out episodes every Sunday for the week. Just search BS Astrology on YouTube or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcast, including Spotify, Audible, and more. Have a good day.